Hey everybody out there in the YouTube universe, this is Mr. Movie, and in today's video we're going to be doing something a little bit different. It's going to be a top 5 list. You know I don't do top 10s. If you watch my channel by genre, I do top 5s, movies that are in my collection from a particular actor or a particular director. Sometimes I do topical ones, and this one happens to be a topical one. And it has to do with comic book movies. Now, I did a two-parter before. I did the top 5 movies in my collection from DC Comics, and then I did the top 5 movies in my collection from Marvel Comics. But there are a lot of great movies that were adapted from comic books that aren't Marvel or DC. They're more independent companies. So I said, you know what? Let's give them a little bit of light, because, you know, there are some great ones. So I made the top 5 list, and this one is today. The top 5 list of movies adapted from comic books that are not Marvel or DC. You know, there's a lot of great artists, great writers, you know, great storytellers that don't work for either of the big houses. They're independent, sort of like the music business. You know, you got the big labels, and then you got the independents, and then you have the underground. And that's kind of where these came from. There's, like I said, a lot of great ones. And, you know, the two big houses are Marvel and DC, and they've made amazing movies. And, you know, they got a whole big separate, the MCU and DCU, two big universes that they've made, where these are more self-contained. Some of them have sequels, but they're really good movies. And like I said, I think they deserve their own list. So that's where this came from. So this one is going to be the top 5 movies in my collection that are adapted from comic books but aren't Marvel or DC. So, kicking it right off with number 5, we got one that came from Aircel Comics, and that is Men in Black. That's all 3 of them in that little box set there, but I like them all. The third one has grown on me a lot. It's tough, but I'm still going to go with the first one. The original is usually the best, and that's what I'm rolling with here. The Men in Black comic is really cool. It's a cool idea. It's based on something that conspiracy theorists will tell you is a real thing. You know, guys in black suits that go and investigate alien and UFO sightings and stuff, and they work for a secret element in the government. And what they did with this, they you know, they made it a little more comical. You know, they have the funny guy who's Will Smith and the straight guy who's Tommy Lee Jones, and they play off each other really well. And what's really cool about it is that, you know, they didn't take it too seriously, but I mean, you know, there is a chance the world could end if they don't save it. So there are some heavy stakes, but a lot of funny comedy bits in this. Great characters, and, you know, two great actors, great story, and also the CGI is really cool because, you know, does it hold up? Yeah, pretty much. But it's so wacky and crazy, you know, that they're doing these aliens and stuff. I mean, it's supposed to look weird and a little out there. You know, it's space. So I think they did a really good job with it, and I like the lighter tone of it. If it was too serious, it wouldn't have been as big as it ended up being. And you probably wouldn't have the 3 movies. It wouldn't be a trilogy. So what they adapted from the comics, they changed a lot of it. But I'll tell you this much. I've said this in other videos. I'm a purist in some ways, and in some ways I'm not. And what I mean by that is, you know, I read the comics, so I don't need to see the exact adaptation on the screen because I already read that story. I know what happens. So switching it up for me is not a big deal. It doesn't bother me. So I don't care if they do that. You know what I mean? And they did that with this. It came out great. All 3 movies are good. I picked the first one because I think it's the best. And it's a really cool adaptation from the comic book. So coming in at number 5 is Men in Black. Coming in at number 4, it's also technically 3 of these, but 2 of these from this director, and I picked the first one, even though both of them, first 2 are great. The third one, the newer one they made, not too good. It's not in there, not in the collection, but that's Hellboy. I picked the first one. The second one is great too, but I picked the first one again, the original, and they knocked it out of the park. I mean, it looks great. It still looks great. They got all the characters right. Great action. Ron Perlman is amazing as he is Hellboy. You know what I mean? And I love how they just ripped it right out of the comic. You know what I mean? Because they got the darker elements to it, but they have the lighter tone. They got his whole attitude correct. And he's just a big red badass, you know? And there's a whole mythology behind it. Some of it is set in the past to show, his origin. I love period pieces. So I think that they took the whole story. They had a lot to bring out. They had to give you where he came from, set up a story, go through it, and go, from beginning, middle, and end. And they were able to pull it off all in the first movie, and then have a cool sequel to it to continue the story. I really wish that they would have let Guillermo del Toro, the director, do the third one and finish off the trilogy instead of rebooting it. The reboot isn't horrible, but it's not great. I didn't really like it that much. It's tolerable, but tolerable doesn't really make it into the collection, so it's not there. But the first two are great, and especially the first installment. He's a really cool character, very unique, very strange. I love a lot all the weirdness and, like I said, the mythology that comes along with it, and great bad guys. Really cool action, and the CGI holds up very well. And you gotta love Ron Perlman. I mean, in real life and in the movie, he's just a great guy, great actor, and really, really tremendous character actor. So Hellboy's amazing. I check out the first two. I leave the third alone. But coming in at number 4 is Hellboy, and it's from Dark Horse Comics. Forgot to mention that right at the beginning of that one. But yeah, Dark Horse you'll see a couple of times. They put out a really quality product with their comics, and the adaptations of the movies are usually really done well. So you're gonna see that again in this list. But yeah, coming in at number 4, Hellboy from Dark Horse Comics. Coming in number 3, this is a classic movie. It's the oldest one that I have in this list, and me and my friends still quote this movie, and it holds up, and it's just a classic, and that's The Crow. I mean, and this is one of the few movies that even women really like this. I don't know if it's because of Brandon Lee is hot or whatever. I don't know. He's a rock star or whatever. But I know a lot of females love comic books. More power to you, ladies. That's pretty cool. But this is the one that they usually like. I love The Crow, and it's good because I think it's because it's dark. It's a romantic story because it's a revenge tale, but it's all because they killed his lady, and I think that's kind of what they dig about it. And the action is top notch. The story is great. The whole mythology behind The Crow. A lot of great actors in it. Brandon Lee unfortunately died during the production, which is tragic. And there's videos you can watch on what really happened in that situation. It's really unfortunate because I think he was ready to take off and be a really big action star. But like I said, he passed away, and that's just terrible. But he left this movie behind for us, and it's a really, really cool movie. It's The Crow came from Image Comics. It's another one of those that has put out quality stuff. And this adaptation is really good. The sequels are pretty much all terrible. The remake, terrible. They should have just left it alone, especially since Brandon passed. But like I said, the story is really good. It's a revenge tale, and he comes back from, they kill him too. And he comes back from the dead, and you can't really kill him. I mean, I'm not going to give everything away, but there's a certain way to do it. And, it's just from beginning to end, really quotable. Like I said, me and my boys always quote this movie. There's so many great lines to it, like, fire it up. When we're drinking, fire it up. Stuff like that. But, he plays a cool character. He looks really great with the makeup and, the leather jacket and, it's guns and knives and all kinds of weapons and great hand-to-hand fighting. Really cool bad guys. And, each one of them is a little bit of a different character. Great character actors that are playing them. And just kick-ass action from beginning to end. ripped straight out of the comic book. Looks great, still holds up. Classic movie, one of my favorite. Number 3, The Crow from Image Comics. Coming in at number 2, another Dark Horse entry. Dark Horse Comics, they're the next one too. So there's 3 out of the 5 Dark Horse Comics. And that number 2 is 300. I mean, what are you gonna say? This is kind of, didn't introduce me to Zack Snyder, but it's one of the ones where I think his vision and his style comes across the right way, and it's done the right way, and with a lot of the slow motion and stuff, but it doesn't bother you because it fits this narrative perfectly. Again, ripped straight from the comics, graphic novel style, and just a great story, and the visuals are just second to none. It was very groundbreaking in the way like the Matrix was. It's not like the Matrix, but it's groundbreaking in that way where you haven't seen anything like this before this. You know what I mean? And everybody kind of copied it a little bit afterwards. Gerard Butler's great in it. And it's just it's a period piece, but they mess with the history because there's monsters and all kind of stuff that never existed. But it's really cool. And it's a comic book movie, so hey, throw the monsters in there. You know what I mean? And it's just a great story of the Persians invading Greece, and 300 Spartans held off something like 1 million Persians. You know what I mean? And the action is just from beginning to end, second to none, kick-ass action. And it's them fighting in a similar style, but they do a lot of cool maneuvers and hand-to-hand stuff and a lot of different weapons. But the reason it doesn't get old, even though it's wave after wave of the Persians attacking, but it's different types of Persians. You got different looking ones that do different stuff, and they have to find out a different way to beat them. And all the fight scenes are great, and it's such great lines in there. This is Sparta, all that stuff, and our arrows will blot out the sky, then we will fight in the shade. I mean, just a classic movie from beginning to end. You're drawn in right away by the visuals, the way it's shot, and the artistry of it, and then the story pulls you in, and then most of the movie is just a straight kick-ass bloodbath, but you're there, you feel like you're there, you feel like you're one of the 300 defending your country against this invading armada. The sequel, it's not horrendous, but it's nothing like this, so it's okay. But this one, classic. Great movie. Even if it wasn't comics, it's still up there as one of my favorite movies. Really cool. I was just watching it the other day. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch 300 immediately. You got some homework. So yeah, coming in at number 2 from Dark Horse Comics is 300. And number 1, also from Dark Horse Comics, Sin City. Now, this one to me is the most unique, because another graphic novel style, but they ripped it right from the comic, and the way it is, I mean, stylized to the T. I mean, the way they did this movie is, again, like nothing you saw before, and then you saw some of it afterwards, people trying to do it, and nobody could really do it. The sequel, again, probably should have left it alone, not that good, but it's black and white, but it doesn't seem like it's black and white, and there's parts of it that are colored. It's very, very interesting the way it's done. Like, you might see a fight scene, and it's 2 characters that are black and white, and one gets punched in the face, but the blood comes out of them, and it's red. You know what I mean? And you see it's very little stuff like that. And there's another thing that I love, if you watch my videos, a lot of different stories going on simultaneously that come together in this one place, which is that Sin City, the place that they're all at. You know what I mean? You got all these different stories that are happening at the same time, and they all end up interacting because they're all part of the same crime wave and stuff that's going on in this city, and everybody has their part to play. just a who's who of actors too. I mean, so many great actors: Bruce Willis and Mickey Rourke, and it goes on and on. And even some great actors that have tiny little parts just to be in it. You know what I mean? Really cool story. Again, another, like, it's strange that it has different elements and stuff. It's a cop story, and then but it's also a revenge story, and then it's a crime story. And, you know, it's all these different elements mixed together to make a really cool mashup of different genres, all in this really stylized, cool looking movie, ripped right out of a comic book. So, and you know, great action. Again, tremendous lines that you're always gonna remember and repeat. You know, and the rewatchability is off the hook. You can watch this movie a million times and never get tired of it. So, one of my favorite movies, even though it's you know, forget about the comic book part of it for a second. Just one of my favorite movies, also Sin City. So, but it happens to be the number one comic book movie in my collection that's not from Marvel or DC. So, running down the list, we got number 5, Men in Black. Number 4, Hellboy. Number 3 is The Crow. Number 2 is 300, and number 1 is Sin City. So those are the top 5 movies in my collection that are from comic books that are in DC or Marvel. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did and you like my other content, please subscribe. Hit the notification bell so when I make new videos, you get alerted. You can check it out. If you do like it, hit the like. If share with your other friends. If they're comic book nuts, especially if they're comic book nuts, they probably know about these, because your average person who's just dabbles or just sees comic book movies probably don't even know that these are from comic books. They might know the movie, but they might not know it's from comic books. If you have other ones that I didn't mention, put them in the comments. If you have them in a different order or something like that, also throw them in the comments. That being said, this is Mr. Movie signing off, and I'll see you again next time at the Flicks.